Hello and welcome to my business CTF talk called Hack the Blue. We're covering something I think extremely, in my opinion, interesting today. I probably would say that as it's very much become, I guess, our baby over on defensive content. We're covering Sherlock's today. I guess you probably sat there wondering what is Sherlock's. There's plenty of reading material on this, but we'll cover it both at a high level today, and we'll also play through a Sherlock's live as part of this talk. And that is the main focus of the talk. Sherlock's is investigative-based content. What we're really covering when we say investigative content is we're talking in particular about content within Deadly Labs that is called Sherlock's. So if we just jump into our dedicated labs here, we can see we've got Deadly Labs and then we enter Deadly Labs. You can see that there's probably something you haven't seen before in Deadly Labs if you have got licenses. And that is a wide variety of content with varying shields as part of it. You can actually filter now based on offensive or defensive content. If we type in defensive, for example, we can see anything with the blue shield is defensive, and anything with the red shield is offensive. What we're going to cover today, though, is a Sherlock called Repetitive D. Now, you might have heard of Repetitive before if you've completed any of the offensive content within EP. Repetitive is actually an exclusive machine. So not only are we bringing regular Sherlocks out, so we'll have 8 out that are, I guess, classified as exploratory at any one time, but we'll also have bonus content sort of in between that, and we'll release that as we create it. The bonus content in particular will, for the most part, I guess, be directly relevant to a machine. So you can actually complete, I guess, the offensive or red team side, and then go for a full purple team approach and also complete the blue team. If we just jump into our Sherlock here, we can see, for example, we have a scenario, which we can cover in some detail here. We have 10 questions and answers. Now, the reason we cover questions and answers rather than, I guess, flags, like a user flag and root flag, is that within blue teaming, if we provided just flags for Sherlocks in particular, what it might make some people do is potentially just look for the flag, which I believe for Sherlocks in particular is probably the wrong way to go with that. We're trying to teach not just, I guess, the core technical skills of DEFA, but also a lot of the context is quite important as well. So like I said, we go through questions and answers. Now, these don't have to be answered in a linear fashion. You can answer them, you can start on question 1 and then go question 5. You can answer them in order if you'd like. We've tried to put them in the most logical order possible, but it is free, so feel free to answer the questions as you perform your analysis. As what we're really trying to encourage here is, if you perform your analysis in the same way you would if you were analysing an instant similar to this at work. So you can see in the About section here, we also cover some high-level details as to what the Sherlock is, what you're expected to do, and also some details about, I guess you can call it, our purple team approach, which is essentially, if you enjoyed the experience of playing through this Sherlock, please go away and also play through the offensive machine. I can speak, I guess, volumes as to how much that has helped myself in the past when I've been performing incident response activities. Understanding the red side, I think, is still really critical. And the same goes for your offensive guys and girls for understanding the blue side. So let's just read through this scenario. So we believe an attacker has access to our internal network. An alert has fired from a malicious file on our 3D printing server. The implications are serious. This server is vital to our business operations, and any compromise could cause significant disruption. We are provided with a network capture and a set of Nginx access logs. Using these, please investigate how this compromise could have occurred. We are reliant on you to ensure our business continuity. Okay, brilliant. So this scenario is really meant to, I guess, hone your focus in on the instant. We've tried to really simulate here, I guess, a ticket that might have come through to you at a SOC, or a phone call that might have come through from a client if you work for a DEFA security, if you work for a DEFA team or a consultancy. These are this kind of information you'd expect to retrieve in my experience and our team's experience. So if you can see a zip password here, hack the blue is a password to all our zip files. If it does contain malware, there'll be an additional unique password for that Sherlock within the actual Sherlock itself. So we can hit download and it will download. But I've already, I guess, call it pre-cooked this and downloaded the repetitive zip file to my local host. I'm just going to take a quick pause here to grab a drink of water and then continue. Okay, all good. So I guess some additional information here. We can see we've added with the network capture, so packet capture or PCAP, and some HTTP logs. If we just switch over to our analysis machine, we're using Caliph for this today. You'll see here we have the zip file. I've already unzipped it though. As you can see within here we have both our Nginx directory, where we have, if it loads, give it 1 second. There we go. My computer's going absolutely crazy right now. So we have our access logs and our error.log. Like I said, the error.log, I don't usually find they're that helpful in instance, so we can check it out later if we'd like to. But we'd like to start the analysis from our access.log due to the fact it's considerably smaller and they're at 71 kilobytes. And I believe there could be considerably less information than our packet capture at 49.3 meg, but we will open that for now anyway. Okay, brilliant. So let's get that open. So as you can see, I'm not tracking back and forth in between my questions and sort of evidence. We'll have a look at as an overview at the evidence first. And what we're really trying to find here, everyone, I guess, is the initial breadcrumb. Because that's what forensics, digital forensics, instant response, SOC work, that's what that's all about. Find that initial breadcrumb and then following those all the way back till you get to your source. And the source in most scenarios is why the attack happened, what was exploited. Okay, how can we fix that going into the future? So we'll open that in a Visual Studio Code. Okay, excellent. Let's make sure we can see every line with word wrap. So if this file was a lot bigger, what I would likely do is drop this into a seam tool, Splunk, Elk, Greylog maybe. My tool of choice we use with Splunk. And because it's an access log, that would just eat that up. And that's where I perform a lot of our hunting or searching. I think for a file this small, it's not really that necessary today. So we'll just be reading this in the good old-fashioned way. One key point to note, timings. Timelining is very important in instant response. That's why when you're completing Sherlocks, you might even get fed up at some point of a lot of questions being, okay, at what time did this happen? At what time did this happen? The reason we're asking that is because, once again, it's directly relevant to how you report an incident. We're trying to simulate as close as possible, everything short of you sending us full reports for us to manually mark. We're trying to simulate how you would write that report and the information you might include in that. And timelining, I guess, is very important for anything to do with the blue world. Okay, so once again, it's a UTC +1. Okay, so now let's have a look through and gain some details. You can see here the host. We'll start left to right. Let's explain the access log first. We see here this is our source IP address. So the IP address is making the request to our web server. Our web server is at HTTP, so printing.repetitive.htb. Obviously, you can see our time there. This is the type of HTTP request. This is a GET. And then this would be the URI that you can see here. Okay. If we keep scrolling down, and what we're looking for here is something that stands out to us. We know that it's running a 3D printing server. We haven't been told of anything else it's running, and the only artifacts we have been provided are a PCAP and this. So you'd assume there might be some evidence in here if this has been compromised. And what we're also looking for here, I guess, is any details around what the print server might actually be running, and any details around that as well. Okay. So once again, we can see that this, I guess, fits the bill with in terms of access to our internal network. This is obviously not public facing from what we can see here anyway. Naturally, all the IP addresses seem to be local addresses, so in the 10.0.0.0/8 kind of range from what we can see so far. And once again, just scrolling down here, looking for anything that sticks out to us, and there's not a huge amount so far. We've seen a new address here, 10.10.0.11. Once again, it's in the same range, and it's looking like just standard browsing for the most part. No unusual user agents. These are things you might look for on initial analysis. Some low-hanging fruit to, I guess, try and kick off the analysis process or forensic process. Once again, it all still looks pretty normal here. We can't see a huge amount. Okay, this is unusual. So what you can see here is, so from the 10.255.254.3 address, this is at 10:01:48, that's 0901 UTC. We can see an actual HTTP post here, and what looks like some kind of path traversal. I think what's also unusual about this is the fact that curl is the user agent being used. Curl is, as far as I'm aware, know that can only be used from the command line, realistically, which isn't something a normal user would, it isn't activity a normal user would perform. So that would usually raise on an internal subnet immediate concern if a sysadmin hadn't been performing that. Especially when you combine that with the fact you can see some very obvious path traversal here, and then you can see it trying to read the cboot.ini file. If we then go to the next line, so 404, so that looked like it was unsuccessful. It then tries to read c windows system euler.txt, which is also unsuccessful. And we then see, sorry, 200. So we then see it try to read the win.ini. And that actually was successful. Now I remember scrolling down repetitive.d, if we jump back into our EP platform, I'm pretty sure we saw some questions relevant to that. Okay, maybe not just yet. Let's go back into our Kali host, see if we get a bit more details of this. So we can see here, it looks like it's also after win.ini, then trying to read C, so program data, Repetia server, database user.sql, and that was also successful. And then the same again. So what's unusual about that is the Repetia server bit. So this looks like path traversal here against what looks like potentially Repetia server, which looks like the printing server that was running. But let's just give that a Google to confirm. Okay, yeah, so 3D printing service is exactly what we'd expect, I guess. Out of curiosity, is there any CVE available for this? Okay, so that's quite a recent CV we can see here. Let's just jump into that and have a look, shall we? Okay, can we see anything else of immediate value in here? Just while waiting for that to load. Okay, not immediately, no, but if we jump back into our browser, hopefully that's loaded up. Okay, maybe not. We can see a GitHub advisory here as well. Okay, proof of concept. So, Repetia server, version 1.4.1. Okay, yeah, so this is exactly what we're seeing here. So it's looking like there's definitely some type of CV being exploited here, and this server must be earlier than 1.4.1. Okay, yep. So yeah, so we're definitely seeing the attempted exploit of, I guess, a known CV that exists in the wild here. And that's CV 2023-31059 for a Repetia server 1.4.1. Okay, excellent. So we know the CV now at least, which is always good news. So if we go back to our main enterprise platform now, Embedded Labs, we can see here there's probably some questions we can answer. So we use .sql, so that's likely a database. I guess we can almost not hazard a guess, but be quite confident that which DB file was retrieved by the attacker. Okay, brilliant, we've got our first question right. Unfortunately, the attack came from, so I think we can confirm at this point this is an attack now. It's path traversal, it's the exploitation of the CV we mentioned. The attack came from our VPN client subnet, meaning the address isn't aftered. To assist in future investigations, can you confirm the user agent string? So that would be curl, I believe, in this scenario. As we can see here, curl 7.88.1. So let's go back to EP and throw that in as an answer and see if we have hit the nail on the head. Okay, excellent. That's a second question that we've got bang on there. Which account was used to successfully authenticate? So I don't think we've seen that just yet. We've seen a couple of sizes for the use.sql. Once again, if we look in here, we can see 20.493, 25.08. We could, in theory, try both those answers, but it's not too clear which one it would be right now. So I suggest maybe wait to look at our PCAP to see if we can find those details in there. But I think what we can see, there's a question about what time the attacker initially attempted to exploit this vulnerability. The first time we can see is in here, and the answer would have to be in UTC. So if we go 11.05.2023, if we jump back into EP, so 11.05.2023, and then 10, so in fact 090148. Okay, brilliant. So that's another question, right? And which file did the attacker initially attempt to read? So we know that is boots.ini. So if we can see that here, that is the initial file they attempted to read. And the format it's asking for it is answer.file. So we're not including the directory in that as well. Okay, brilliant. And what the first file successfully read? So we saw that earlier as well, didn't we, from our access logs? We've got quite a bit of information from these actually today, haven't we? So win.ini. Okay, brilliant. Win.ini. Okay, excellent. So we've got that bang on as well. There's still a few questions that we haven't answered just yet. I imagine we'll probably delve into our PCAP for those. Okay, excellent. But I guess what we do know from that, if we just have back into our access logs, is that the malicious IP address is at hand here is 10.255.254.3. We know the user agent string curl is being utilized, or curl tool, command line tool is being utilized by the attacker. And we know that we now also know the CV that was actually exploited. So we're doing quite well here at the minute. And I think we've answered a few of the questions so far. I think we've probably exhausted our options now from the access log. So I think we can jump into our PCAP. So I mean, we already know a few details with this, and that is that the IP address and that HTTP was most certainly utilised by attackers. That's what the service actually seems to be hosted on. Okay, so we can see immediately here, quite clear, is our path traversals. If I just shrink that a bit. So our path traversals, that is the EULA, that's win.ini. And then we can see program data. I'm sure if we move this to right here, we see use.sql. Now I'm immediately curious if we just follow that HTTP stream, what we're actually seeing there. So we see SQLite format, and then we can actually see that what looks like an administrator account exists within that database that's been stolen. And I fully expect we can probably export that. So what packet is that? So that's 114.8.181. Okay. And we know that was about 20,000 bytes in size. So I expect to see probably the file name based on this of connection, the connection loss.php. So we'll wait for that to come up. There we go. Okay, it looks like that's closest in size we can get. But we can see two of those, however, interestingly enough, which we can take both of them if we need to, and maybe come back for the other. And let's just call that user.sql and save it to Repetia. Okay, excellent. Okay. If we just open up our terminal here and strings user.sql, yeah, we can see that's definitely the SQL database that was stolen there. Now, if we jump back into EP, we can actually see, if we just scroll down here, remember the size of the database retrieved by the attacker in bytes. So if we go back to our VM and right click properties, and we could use command line for this. I think I'm being ultimately quite lazy here. Wait for that to load up. We can see here that's 20,480 bytes. So let's enter that into our platform. Okay, excellent. That's another question bang on. Very happy with that. Now, we can see here which account was used to successfully authenticate to our printing server. Based on what we've seen so far, I'm fully expecting this to be the administrator account, but we'll keep investigating as there might be other artifacts that are missing in there. But we can roll out of that TCP stream. So IP dot. Okay, so we see WSMan is in use here, and then some kind of NTLM over HTTP is in use. And it's all from, I think, once again, the same malicious address that we've seen time and time again. If we just roll down here. Okay, so we can't see much else realistically in use here. However, I'm quite curious to see yeah, we can't see much else in use here. If it was tracked back there, I know they showed my EP screen for a bit longer. What we can see here, like I said, is NTLM over HTTP being used. We can see the user administrator potentially attempted to be used. Now, I'm pretty sure this is often indicative of WinRM traffic. So I'm wondering if we do TCP.port and then equals 5985. I'm half expecting to see that type of traffic actually being utilised here. Okay, so I guess it's as expected. So we see deskport 5985 is being used, WinRM, and we can see the username administrator. Okay, so at this point I think, and based on the fact that this occurs after the theft of the SQL database, we can be pretty confident that it was the WinRM that was utilised by the attacker to authenticate to our printing server here. So if we jump back into EP and we just actually answer administrator there we go. Okay, that is bang on. And I think now at this point we know that both port 80 and 5985 have been used by the attacker, and it mentions there that which two TCP ports were used. So we can answer that as well. Okay, excellent. So we jump back down, we can see there's not actually many questions left here. And which Windows protocol did the attacker utilise to authenticate to our printing server? So I think we can answer that as well as WinRM based on the analysis we've done so far. Okay, excellent. So there is one more question left, and that is, what is the password of the user account used to successfully authenticate to our printing server? Okay, so go back into our practical VM here. I'm not seeing much of this in here. It's very hard to actually come to. Based on analysis I have done so far, both live and off the call, it's quite hard to come to a conclusion for this, but I think the most logical method would be to look at the actual password that was stolen. And it looked like an MD5 hash, didn't it? If we just open our terminal again. Okay. Okay, so if we take that MD5 hash and just hash.txt, and we drop this into there, Okay, brilliant. Now, in the meantime, the most certain what I find the easiest method of cracking a hash is probably to use crack station. So that's where we'll go straight away. See if we can actually find the password for this. So, okay, absolutely nothing immediately. Okay, well, I'm going to take a quick pause on this to try and read up a few details on potentially how Repetia maybe stores its hashes and see if that would help at all. Yeah, I'm not quite sure where to go immediately now, so I'm going to take a quick pause on this recording and come back once I have a couple of answers for you. Okay, so this actually involved setting up a Repetia server in Windows. And what we can see here is there's an app.min.js file. And within that file, what we can see if we have a look within the actual JavaScript functions that exist, that here it quite clearly concatenates the username and the password when performing its hashing functionality. So what we actually need to do is append to a password, so a password list. So we'll use rockq. We'll append administrator to every single line in rockq.txt, and then have a look at actually trying to crack the hash. So yeah, I guess here's one I made earlier where I've already performed this. So if we just open up our terminal here, and then if we look at utilising a word list, it'll be the word list rockq.txt with the appended, of course, administrator at the start of every line. And then the format is raw MD5. Or MD5-raw. Oh no, it's raw-MD5. Okay, excellent. We can see there, administrator Hugo #123. Okay, excellent. So if we actually jump back into our EP platform now, we should be able to answer the last question. So if we answer it, we copy and paste it across. Okay, yeah, so as I explained, we can now enter the credentials that we've seen here. So it is Hugo #123. Okay, and brilliant, success. So we can see that we've successfully completed the Sherlock repetitive-d. We've done it within the time we had. There was a couple of points where we had to sort of step away and rethink something, which is perfectly normal when building or playing through any Sherlocks. But I guess, yeah, thank you for watching today. Hopefully you enjoyed this talk. And please feel free to provide myself any feedback from sebh24 for any of the Sherlocks you do play. Thank you very much.